I'm looking at your overall, your life. You're Jamila's daughter, and you came from this incredible background. So you were teaching and performing, and you've learned from your mother, and then at some point you have this, I don't know if it's, everything is an evolution, but I don't know if it's a moment or if it's a gradual aha thing. But you come up with your format, and it's so specific, and it's so different from what you were doing before. I mean, it's an evolution of it, but I'm curious about that discovery and where it came from, or where it grew out of.
Well, there are so many concurrent energy forces that ended up creating the path, but that found me, you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Like, really, it chose me, but it all makes sense when it's all put together. But I would say one of the more defining moments in my life that really was a part of an aha moment was when the music shifted in the Middle East. Yeah. That was huge, because in the 70s, we had compositions being created for belly dancers, and we'd never heard any of these big pieces with 35-piece bands. And so back then, there's no iTunes, and there's no CD, there's no nothing. So you'd have to find somebody that went to the Middle East and like had a little teeny tape recorder in their purse, and 007 tried to, record a show. And then by the time they got back to the States, and we'd invite everybody over, my mom would invite everybody over our house, and we'd like pile around like the table and like press that button to like hear this piece. And I remember, because I was like 12, 7th grade-ish, 12, 13, and hearing these pieces going, wow, it was like my whole world opened up, being able to visualize like movement, like how this would fit, and I saw shapes, and I saw what I wanted to do, but I realized though that I couldn't see what was in my head. So I had this dancer in my head that was really, really fabulous, doing all this great stuff, but I actually couldn't do it, and that broke my heart, because I think that because I had also been trained in Western dance forms, and I've taken everything, ballet, tap, jazz, modern, flamenco, Tahitian, Indian, and in being trained in those dance forms, it was so different, because you were trained muscularly, if you had good, responsible teachers, and you could actually see, even if you couldn't, like your first day of ballet, like you could see how you get to point, like it's not going to be for years and years, but you get it, but in belly dance, I couldn't see how I'd get to that vision of myself, and so I had to start taking the visions of movement and picking them apart. And then I started to try to break them up, like I had been taught in Western dance muscularly, and then train myself. And I dug my fingers into my body and tried to figure out what muscles they were, and opened up anatomy books, and I think it's this muscle, and then bring all my notes into like my doctors and body workers, and I'd be like, dig your fingers in, am I doing this right? Is this really what I'm using? And 90% of the time I was pretty right on, because what you feel is what's happening, But that's how it started, because I saw the dancer I wanted to be inside my head. There really wasn't a business plan.
Right, yeah.
It was me, my art, my vision of what I wanted for how I was going to move. And from then, it really took me years, because I was my own guinea pig. I mean, now I have this program, this certification program. It's all laid out, everything's organized, and here's this video, and you learn this, and then this choreo. But back then, I mean, it took me years to even, it took me, I could really, like my high school to develop my vibration. But now I can tell you, you can get it like in a year or less,
Right, because we're not inventing it. It's
right.
already the real.
This is what you do, you know, because I had to make mistakes. But that's how it all started.
Yeah, and it's so specific and yet simple. and complex and simple at the same time. It's quite something.
But it's also, it really is the evolution of like in-depth storytelling, but how I would want to tell a story. And I used to make my students watch Children of a Lesser God, the movie Children of a Lesser God. And last night actually it was on, and I stopped and I watched it, and it was just so beautiful because it was perfect. Because I actually tell my students that your responsibility as a dancer is really to visualize that your audience is deaf, and so you have to play the music for them and let them see the music. I mean, because
your body is representing the whole orchestra.
It is the whole band. So that's your that should be your motivation the minute the music comes on, is like, what does it sound like? I mean, if in the movie Children of a Lesser God, if she can physicalize what waves sound like water waves, then the least we can do is
right.
Represent the musicality in the composition, the orchestration, and not just a melody liner, a bass. Yeah. The real emotional context. Like, she can do waves, and she can even have the emotional connection between not just what they must physicalize, but also how they affect her. And so that's what we work on in level 3.
Oh, I can't wait.